Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at qseidotokyo.com or on Instagram at qseido and Tokyo Station Pens.
And my name is Jacob, and I'm Studio Fan on Instagram and occasionally elsewhere as well.
And welcome to episode 80. We are back, just the two of us, the boys. And I'm also back from Korea. I went to Korea the other day for several different reasons, but one of the main attractions in Korea was the Seoul Pen Show. Now, we don't really talk too much about Korea on this show because we're obviously a Japan-focused podcast, but I noticed that we do talk about China, we talk about Hong Kong, we talk about Taiwan, but we don't really talk about Korea, and that's because, as far as I am aware, the stationery scene or the homegrown stationery scene is not the strongest in Korea. That was my impression, right?
I can only recall that we talked about Korea in three contexts. One is about the inks, so that they seem to have an ink thing going on, right, with
well, everybody, right? Tono Limbs, with Wearingle, with this new one called Weekend, Dominant Industries.
Dominant Industries, that's the name I was searching for. Yeah, Dominant Industries was I remember testing some of those. And before that, I remember we talked about Korea because there was this Eureka, this one-man army making everything except for the converter. Right, maybe he's a bit of an exception, but I remember we talked about that. And also occasionally Korea gets their own exclusive platinum pens and so on. But yeah, I can't remember hearing about homegrown Korean fountain pens by big brands.
Yeah, and even their writing instrument companies, there's one called Monami, and it's kind of focused more on the lower end. So Korea wasn't really an attractive stationary destination for me. But, with running Qseido, we have customers all over the world. I haven't counted the number of countries yet, but it's definitely more than 20. And actually, Korea is one of the biggest markets for Qseido, surprisingly. And so one of the customers said, hey, are you going to come to the Seoul Pen Show? And I said, I haven't really thought about it because, for all the reasons that we just said, I didn't think Korea was such a large pen market. And I looked at my sales and I thought, well, actually, it is kind of interesting that a lot of people are spending. So, might pop over for a weekend. I didn't want to be a vendor at the show because I didn't know what the atmosphere was like. I didn't know if, we'd actually do well. So I didn't want to commit a day to it. But Korea is close enough where I can just say, well, I'll just go over and visit and have fun as a visitor. And at the same time, MD Paper Products, which has now become separate from the Midori brand, was planning a series of events in Korea on the same weekend. So I kind of got to hit both at the same time. So the interesting thing that I learned on my trip to Korea is that, I got to talk to some of the people. And, I asked about them. I said, when it comes to stationery, what do you guys think about? And they still do think about Japan, even though there are so many ink companies now in Japan. Seemingly the most interesting inks are coming out of Japan. They said that they still really think about the Japanese brands, and they consider Tono Limbs to be a Japanese brand, which I thought was hilarious.
I think the Japanese people also think of it as a Japanese brand.
Yeah. Because I think all the packaging's in Japanese, right? So, they didn't know that Tono Limbs was actually made in Korea.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I asked them about the other ink makers. I said, why do you think Korea's got a sudden boom of ink makers? Obviously if there's no market need, you could start the company, but you're not going to be there for long. And they actually said it's not like fountain pen enthusiasts who started these ink companies. It's just one day these companies started to pop up and started making inks, and now they're part of the community. So that was kind of interesting for me. It's a very different approach. I don't know who's investing in, businesses that are making inks for fountain pens, but here we are, right? 2024. Weirder things have happened.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, one thing I think it's interesting about these Korean ink brands, you talk about Three Oysters, Wearing Gold, Dominant Industries, and so on. Most of them seem to have done a good job getting like international distribution. You can buy them in the US and Europe and so on. But that is definitely not the case with Tono and Lims. Like Tono and Lims is, as we have talked about, so dominant in Japan. Like every little like one person hobbyist stationery notebook maker has their own 2 or 3 tonal limbs ink, and you can buy them everywhere. But it's almost impossible, as far as I can tell, to buy tonal limbs ink outside Japan.
So, I think this is a difference in the business model because I think while the other players they're more like traditional, right? So Tono Lims is the only ink company that came from the community, right? Mr. Lim himself is a big user of fountain pens. So while the other companies are more like quote unquote traditional, they've gone with official distributors and stuff like that. Tono Lims prefers to work directly with retailers, I believe. I don't think they have distribution. So, yeah, I think that's probably a big reason why. But other than that, I wouldn't be able to really tell you why else that's the case.
But yeah, one thing about distribution is I can imagine a distributor would bulk at tonal limbs like 1 gazillion SKUs, right? That's
Yeah,
difficult to deal with.
yeah, for sure. And we've seen Shigure inks carry them in the past. I think maybe Van Ness, but I'm not sure any other ones.
Yeah, that's true. Vanessa are a bit special because they have this uncanny ability to get hold of any inks from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and then so I did, of course, also go to some shops. I went to Blue Black first on the first day. That's where I did most of my shopping. Um, and what I didn't, I knew that they had some kind of a collaboration with Ink House in Hong Kong, but what I didn't know is that they had pretty much rebranded entirely to Ink House. So I think there must be some kind of a monetary financial investment of some sort by Ink House into Blue Black, because when you go to the store, it's 2 floors, and you go, there's no Blue Black signage. It all says Ink House, and um, the interior, at least on the first floor, is exactly the same style. Uh, so that was pretty cool. They were pretty small, but they were probably the most, kind of traditional quote unquote fountain pen store. It was not the best store that I visited, but it was definitely the best for ink, and I bought the most from there. But they didn't have pens like MD paper, for example, right? So no, it was interesting. It was worth it. They had these really cute mini Colorverse bottles, which was cute, and that's another Korean company that we didn't talk about when it comes to ink. Um, so Blue Black was nice, and then as I said, MD Paper Products was doing their Korea event, so they had it in Seoul. They had it at Point of View and Best Pen, and I really liked both of these stores. Point of View is a kind of like a lifestyle store. I would actually associate more like the Tsutaya in Ginza 6.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. Focused actually a little bit more on the lower end. So Ginza 6 has all the Makie stuff, but Point of View is more like a high end zakaya-san. So like a home stationary goods like tools and stuff. But they had an event there with MD Paper Products where they actually brought like a lot of paper from Japan, and they even brought like, I don't know if they brought like the water, but there was a gallery of how the paper is made from like the pulp form into the actual paper and the binding process. So that was pretty cool to see. And when you walk into this gallery, it's in a separate building. You can actually hear they've recorded like the sounds of people writing on the paper, so you can hear that, and you can hear it the most when you sit down in the center of the room. So there's some kind of like advanced audio gimmicks there, and they got a special foil printed version of the MD notebook, and they also had some exclusive A5 notebooks with the Shun print, as well as an exclusive leather goat cover. So I bought some of that for our friend Quay. Um, and what surprised me was that there was a line to get into this building. This store is like 3 floors high plus a separate building, and we waited in line for 20 minutes. And apparently, that's not just because of the event. It's like people just wait in line for the store, which surprised me.
Wow, yeah, that I haven't seen that much here other than events for sure. I remember during COVID we had to wait in line outside the Eurobox, but that's pretty much it. You don't normally wait outside the store.
Yeah, and it's mostly couples. So I did ask some of the fountain pen folks there, and they said that Point of View isn't really a store for fountain pen people. Like fountain pen people don't really like this store. It's more a store for like quote unquote the regular people, the normal people.
I would say, based on your description, I think of these like zakasan in Japan, like Angers, for example, in Kite or like Delphonics, the kind of stores that have an interesting selection of notebooks. Sometimes some pretty rare ones. They got some Kaweco pens and some Lame pens and some like interesting pencils and but it's not really like a fountain pen store.
Yeah, it's exactly like that, but it's way more upscaled, and it's like a 3 floor building, right? So no, yeah, you're right. It is absolutely like that. Um, but they don't have like a lot of fountain pens. They have some, maybe some of the cheaper ones. They have Tag, um, but otherwise it's more focused on what we would consider the low end, but what normal people might consider like the you know luxury stationery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but it was a very cool story. It seemed like a lot of people were going there like on dates, so that was pretty funny. Yeah, seemed to be a pretty popular date spot.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting
And
choice. Okay.
yeah. And there's like a bunch of cafes there, so it's kind of like this hip area. It's almost like Harajuku in Tokyo.
I see. I see.
Yeah. And then Best Pen was really cool. Their appeal is that they have all of these pens, even the fancy ones that are laid out, and you can try them. And the way that the MD event was is that they kind of hijacked the entire store, and all of the tables were like wrapped in MD paper, so you can write directly on the table. We might include some links to some pictures, but that was pretty cool. The one thing that I did have a big challenge with though is that I um I did not expect it to still be so hard, but pretty much nobody speaks English. And very difficult to get around without speaking Korean, at least for me. I mean, I guess I'm just used to being in Japan and just understanding everything, right? But yeah, definitely language was a barrier. But those were the stores. I'd say definitely worth a visit to Point of View and Best Pen. And then if you are wanting some inks, then Blue Black has the most exclusives. So they've got exclusive sailors, they've got exclusive inks, they've got a bunch of exclusive stuff. But in terms of the store experience, Point of View probably number one, and Best Pen number two, Blue Black number three. And I didn't get to go to, I think it's called TI Me or Time. I don't really know how the store is pronounced, but that place is pretty cool too. And next time I go, I want to go to, they have this like bookstore where it's, or a library where it's like floor to ceiling of books, and it's like very like photogenic, called Starfield Library. I want to go there next time I go to Korea. But yeah, so that was the shops, and the Seoul Pen Show was held in one of those community centers. So that was fine. The lights went out for um, you know 5 minutes or something. I made a surprise buy here, Jacob.
At the pen show.
I've been waiting to talk about this.
Okay, tell me.
At the pen show, I made a surprise buy there. First of all, Nagasawa was there, and Mr. Pilot was also there.
Oh, I was wondering why he didn't go to the Tonal Limbs event. I think we just got explanation.
Yes, he could not have been in two places at the same time. So, um, I saw something that I wanted, which is the Hoshiawase, but he said that he didn't have a price for that for some reason because it needed like repairs or something, and so I didn't buy that. And I walked around. I was hoping to get these alchemy inks. Have you seen these alchemy inks before?
No, I never heard of.
Oh, this I think you. I mean, it's not fountain pen friendly, so I don't know how interested you would be. But I think conceptually, this is just like it's crazy. So basically, what they are is that they are UV reactive inks, and um, they change color depending on whether they've been exposed to sunlight. So I'm sending you a link right now so you can see in real time. Maybe we'll get like a real time reaction. But I just sent you a link to an Instagram video.
I'll click on the link. Yeah, it's coming up. Oh, this is from Dominant Industries.
Yes.
Coming soon, Alchemist. 10. What? Oh.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. This seems to be straight out of Tonal Limbs playbook. Yeah, this is something
Yeah.
they would
So
do. Very cool. Very cool. Not super practical, but the ink doesn't need to be practical. This is cool.
No. Practical. I mean, come on. I've it's not like my bright pink ink is practical, right? But anyway, I wanted to buy these inks, and they have a Kickstarter version, but I didn't necessarily want the Kickstarter version. I wanted the old versions. But yeah. So I managed to get that at Blue Black, and I was wondering if they had some other ones, but they didn't, and they didn't bring them. So I didn't leave with any inks from there, even though I had wanted to. But I was walking past this the hall, and I saw this table with just these notebooks, and I was like, okay, these are notebooks. I wonder who makes them, what the paper is, and so it turns out that they make their own notebooks, and I asked if I could test them, and they said yes, and so I whipped out my 6mm Pilot Parallel that installed in my Kakari, which basically means it's wet ink for days, because I want to see if it bleeds through and I want to see if it shows through, right? So
Sure.
So I do my thing.
That's a very evil thing to do, by the way.
It is.
I mean, I have on many occasions at various events, people showcase their paper and say this is fountain pen friendly, have a look, and they're hoping that you would bring up a pen with like a fine nib and Pelican Royal Blue, and then you actually have a fooder nib with some like evil Kakimori ink, right? And then it's like bleeds 5 pages. They don't like that.
And you do it right in front of them, right?
Right.
Well, I was using Pilot Blue Black, so fortunately not a terribly evil ink. But to my surprise, this ink did not bleed through at all. It had minimal show through, didn't feather, and it was really good paper. So I'm not really quite sure how to say this, but they are apparently a printing and binding company, and this company's name seems to be Sangjisa. I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but yeah. So I was like, wow, this is really, really good. And so I bought 3 books, and they had like different versions of them. They had They had ones with covers, which were 6,500 won, so that's about 650 yen, which I found to be a ridiculous price. And then the books with no covers, so it's just paper but it's bound, was 3,500 won, which is about 350 yen per notebook, which I felt like I robbed them.
So what I'm hearing really is that we might get some co-branded Q-Cedo notebooks in the future based on your enthusiasm here.
What I'm saying is that this paper is really good, and
Right.
you should try it at the next pen meet, which we're going to have on the 11th of May.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. By the way, about the one, I think one of the like Japanese people, they don't travel much overseas right now because the yen is like down the toilet. The only other country that has a similar problem is South Korea. So this is one of the few destinations that are like realistic for Japanese people right now. So yeah, I imagine that you might have seen some. There are many Japanese tourists. Yeah, I imagine that.
Oh, and there were many. There were many. Yeah. One of the impressive things with this notebook, so they bind it in kind of like a traditionally bound method, I'm assuming, but it lies perfectly flat.
Let me see your photo here.
So that was really cool.
That looks good. That looks good. I'm keen to try it. Keen to try it.
Yeah. So that was nice, and yeah, so that's what I did in Korea. That was a long segment.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like funny. I've never actually been to Korea. I've been meaning to go to Korea many times because it's obviously easy to reach from Japan, but for some reason it's never happened. But maybe now I have to go. So this was a completely different topic I wanted to talk about because I did some research recently about Mitsubishi. You know, we talked in the last episode or in the recent episode about Mitsubishi Pencil because obviously they've been in the news recently in stationery circles because they acquired Lamy. And some of the articles, some of the posts about this news have claimed or suggested that Mitsubishi Pencil is part of the big Mitsubishi conglomerate, this industrial conglomerate that includes like a big bank, heavy industries, and so on. Turns out it's not, right? I actually assumed that it was also part of the conglomerate, but it's not. It's a completely separate company. There's no cross ownership of any kind. And in fact, it was Mitsubishi Pencil that first registered that now iconic like three diamonds logo. That was like in early 1900s. But you know, when you register a trademark, you have to specify what you're going to use it for. So in their case, of course, it was like wood case pencils and erasers and so on. And then come 15-ish years later, the big Mitsubishi Zaibatsu. So in the pre-war era, the Zaibatsu were these enormous Japanese conglomerates that had like a big bank that financed everything else, which was like shipbuilding and aircraft and power plants and rails and all of that stuff. So Mitsubishi was like one of the big ones. Then you also have Mitsui and Sumitomo and others. But anyway, Mitsubishi came 15 years later and they registered basically the same trademark, except that in their case, they were not making pencils and erasers. They were making, you know, ships and aircraft and power plants. So there was no real overlap there. So they were allowed to do that. But this double registration actually became a problem for Mitsubishi Pencil after the war, when Japan lost the war, because, you know, the Allied occupying forces, they came in and they broke up these Zaibatsu conglomerates into smaller companies, and they were not allowed to use the trademarks, the logos anymore. So Mitsubishi Zaibatsu were not allowed to use the three diamonds logo, and initially this poor Mitsubishi Pencil company, which is making pencils and erasers, right, rather than like Zero fighter aircraft. They were also caught up in this, but then that was cleared up after a while. And in fact, there was a period after the war when all products from Mitsubishi Pencil, like all their wood case pencils and all of the erasers and so on, they had a label on it that said Zaibatsu Mitsubishi to Nanda Kankarimasen. So we have no relation to the big evil like Zaibatsu that makes navy ships and aircraft. So that is sort of the fun little backstory there, and yeah, it's a separate company. And by the way, this is sort of where I am in the hobby right now. Like, I don't buy much stuff, and I'm looking for increasing like obscure stories like this that maybe 5 other people are interested in, and I'm keen to write about it and talk about it. So apologies in advance to listeners. You're going to get more of this.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I had already known that Mitsubishi Pencils was not part of the Zaibatsu, but I did not know that they were not allowed to use their logo after the war.
Yeah, so I read, this guy Bungo. I don't know what his real name is, but he has,
Yeah.
he's involved in everything stationery related in Japan.
The self-claimed stationery
Yeah,
king.
and he recently wrote a little stationery dictionary book. I he published a book, and this book has a little paragraph that explains this. So I thought that was funny, so I wanted to talk about it. So yeah, it's easy to assume that Mitsubishi Pencil is part of the big Mitsubishi group, but yeah, no, there's no relation there.
All right. And then Kamihaku, did I put that in there? Yes, I put that in there.
I have no recollection of doing that. I think this was in March, right? Which was like I
Yes.
was not going anywhere in March. It was like crunch time for me.
Yeah, so I went to Kamihaku, and it's kind of the usual for Kamihaku. Not too much fountain pen stuff, although they had some fountain pens. But I did want to bring up one artist that I had known of before. I had seen them in the last Kamihaku, but we weren't recording podcasts back then. Which is just wanted to shout out this artist called Obi-Wan. So
Okay.
Obi-Wan, have you ever heard of Obi-Wan?
Outside Star Wars, no.
So, th- they are really cool in my opinion. They have some really really cool kind of modern retro artwork right now, and they actually designed the entire Kamihaku like aesthetic this time. So I've just sent you a link to their photo, their Instagram, and so I'm really into their work right now. And in order to get their products, I think we stood in line for like an hour and a half. Like, and we were the first ones into the venue. So they're definitely a really hot artist right now. So I just want to shout them out and help other folks outside of Japan get to know them a little bit more.
So what are they making here? I see some stickers, and what else did you say they're making?
So they mostly make stickers, they make postcards, they make these like paper boxes, and they're mostly a design company.
Mm.
They're mostly a design and logo company, but they have like this Chinese restaurant wrapping paper, for example.
This all looks very
And
Instagrammable, for these people who make these, flat lay like planner spreads. You
mm-hmm.
get some of these stickers to make it perfect.
Yeah, and they have these like fake stamps, but I think the stamps are actually stickers, so you can stick them. And yeah, just generally pretty cool. They're coming out with a skateboard with the three Chinese restaurant pandas. So that's kind of cool. But no, yeah,
That looks pretty cool. I like it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just kind of cool. They have this UFO cat thing. It's this is for me this is the epitome of um modern retro Japanese kawaii.
And also a epitome of Kamihaka. Kamihaka gathers all of these weird, cute, quirky, small paper sticker shops all in one place.
Yeah, and they are doing actually a bunch of they're a design company, right? So the most of their money, I assume, is actually made from designing for like businesses. So they've made like wine bottle label stickers before. They've done all sorts of other designs, t-shirt designs and stuff like that. I would love to work with them one day, but I don't know what it would be. So haven't reached out to them, but it's just really I really like this style that they're working on. So yeah, just wanted to talk about them, and they're the only store in Kamihaku that had like a hour plus line. Even Eric didn't have that long of a line.
That's interesting because that would imply that people knew about them. It was bus ahead of time, right?
Oh yes, the Kamihaku girls, they knew, and these people were placed strategically as the first table that you will walk past when you enter the venue. But yeah, so that was Kamihaku. These people definitely the best table that I went to. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I think I'll go again to see what they do more next time.
By the way, did this year's Kamihaka had this still had this limitation where you had to pay a cash at all tables?
No,
Nice. Or slash dangerous, but yeah, that's good.
yeah,
Convenient but dangerous if they fix that.
yeah. Otherwise, I would not have spent any money. All right, the next thing that okay, so I know it's pronounced Tuzu, but when I see it written in English, I always want to say Tuzu.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be probably the most mispronounced product name ever. And so this is Sailor's new entry-level fountain pen. And looking at the marketing copy, it seems as if the name comes from Sutto, Zuzuru, Zutto, Zuzuku. So basically like write softly, like gently, and i.e. with a fountain pen and like for a long time, like don't get tired. Sort of that's what I'm getting from that. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to hear people saying Tuzu. They're going to say Tuzu, I guess. I don't know. So I'm not sure if they come with like a pronunciation guide. But anyway, this is very interesting because this is not just like a minor release, like another new color of Prophet Junior or something. I mean, Sailor went all in on this. This seems to be something they have been working on for a long time. In fact, the page says that they have been working on this for a good 5 years, and they spent like the first 3 years just interviewing customers, figuring out what people who are currently not using fountain pens, what their thoughts are, why fountain pens are intimidating, what kind of fountain pen would they consider using, and then they came up with this new design. So everything is new. It's a whole new nib, it's a whole new feed, but then of course the headline feature is that the pen has this triangle grip, but you can adjust it.
Well, you don't adjust the grip. You don't adjust the grip.
The angle related to the nib, right? So depending on how you tilt your pen, you can angle the nib correctly and still have a comfortable triangle grip. So that's really the headline feature, because I guess what came out of the research was that people hold their pens in various weird ways, and of course with the fountain pens, depending on how you hold, depending on your grip, it might not write well if the nib is not angled correctly, right? So that's what they presumably trying to solve here. But it's not just about that, because another thing they're saying on the product page is that one feature of the new nib and feed unit is that just like Platinum's Procyon, you just need to dip the nib down to the breather hole in order to fill it. So presumably that is more like noob friendly, so that's another new feature. And also, this is the first time I believe that Sailor is advertising something that is basically the same as Platinum's slip and seal mechanism. They don't call it slip and seal, but it's basically slip and seal that they're describing. We know that Sailor has had this mechanism. Like some of the high-end Pro Gears and King of Pens have effectively slip and seal mechanism, right? But I can't remember having seen that advertised in this way before. I'm not sure what Platinum thinks about that, but yeah, I guess they can say what they want. So it's interesting how big of a bet this is for Sailor. Clearly, they think that this is going to have a big impact, because in fact, if you look at Sailor's financials, we talked about that recently. It's all red and depressing basically. But their guidance for the coming year is surprisingly rosy. So, which makes me think that they believe that this is going to be the big turnaround model for them. We'll see if it is. I don't think the pen is particularly stylish, but I don't think it's meant to be stylish either. It's meant to be like playful and like not intimidating to someone who currently uses a ballpoint and like thinks that fountain pens are like scary or pretentious or intimidating, right? So what do you think about this pen?
I don't understand this pen. I don't understand why this pen exists, and why it exists at the price that it does. I
Yeah, the price is a concern. Yeah.
Yeah, I do hear that fountain pens can feel scary for a lot of new users, and I'm totally down for, products or efforts to change that. I'm not sure that this was the product because I think when you're getting into a fountain pen, right, we're throwing practicability out of the window, right? I mean, if you wanted a nice writing experience, you should go with a rollerball. I mean, not as nice as a fountain pen, but you know, definitely miles above your regular ballpoint pen, and nice enough. I think the main barrier to entry is price, right? Like fountain pens have this image of being very, very pricey, and also a reason why people want to get into fountain pens is because, okay, let's face it, it looks cool. It's the rule of cool. This is both expensive and looks bad.
Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't disagree, but yeah, go ahead.
Right. So the entire gimmick is that you rotate the front part of the section so that you can hold the triangular grip while having the nib at a different rotation to your grip. But my question is, well, why wouldn't people have just used a round section and just rotated the pen?
I think the answer to that question is that some people have the habit of like rotating the pen while they're writing. I know for sure that people in my family do that. They initially hold the pen correctly, and then like 30 seconds later, it's rotated, right? So the triangle grip prevents that, right? But if your grip is not suitable for that to begin with, then it doesn't work.
Right, but people have been rotating their grips for forever, right? It's not like a new modern phenomenon. So, and people have been writing with pens forever, right? At least 100 years, or at least 50 years before the ballpoint pen was invented. And so, let's assume that people rotate their grips, and this helps. I don't understand why you couldn't have just pulled the nib and feed out of a TWSBI and reinserted it at your rotational angle, because the TWSBI also has a triangle grip, right? I don't know if I don't think the Lamy can rotate, but at least the TWSBIs can, for half the price. I don't know. I don't think it's half the price in Japan, but I think there were ways to solve this issue that didn't take a 5-year development and a new product. I just don't really understand why this was made, because if for example, right, like just if this was if you're coming out with an entry level product, what pen are you competing with, right? You're competing with the Preppy, and you're competing with the Kakuno, and maybe the Metropolitan, right? And those are like 1,000 yen products, right?
That's the problem. Yeah, the price for sure.
So so who does this pen actually compete with? This competes with their own like Profit Casual, right? It's competing with uh it can't even compete with the Lightif because it's double the price of the Lightif, which is, arguably a much better pen. Um so it's really getting into that quote unquote mid range already. For people who, I mean, I'm just looking at this from a, if I didn't know anything about fountain pens, I think spending $10 on a pen is expensive. You're telling me here's a $55 pen. I don't know. It just, there seems to be a problem solution mismatch. I really appreciate the intent, but I just don't understand why this was the product that was made.
Well, the bet must be that people may want to try a founder pen because the writing experience is better even than with a gel ink pen, right? But the founder pen is intimidating. Founder pen doesn't suit your grip, so if there was a solution to that, you would buy it. But the problem is, as you say, like a Kakuno is an impulse buy. A Preppy is an impulse buy. I think for many people, a 5,000 fountain pen is not an impulse buy in the same way. Like you don't go to your local book/stationery store around the corner and see this new Tuzu display and say, let me just buy one and a bottle of ink and try it, right? That's it's a bit expensive for that. Having said that, I mean, I hope it does well. I mean, all the best to Sailor. I think it's an interesting attempt, and I'm keen on trying the nib and feed and see if it dries any different from the like Profit Junior nibs. One more thing about this product that is kind of interesting. So we're talking now about how they're trying to draw people into fountain pens. But there's both a fountain pen version of Tuzu and also a ballpoint version. Did you see that?
Yes, I did, which makes no sense.
Right, because that pen obviously doesn't have that rotate, adjust your grip, because that doesn't make sense for a ballpoint pen that is inherently, I mean, the tip is inherently round, so you wouldn't need to do that anyway, right? So you have basically the same shape, but you don't have the headline feature, and you don't really drawing people into fountain pens. So that was a bit interesting choice. I wonder if there's some kind of a hedge. If this all goes south, at least we can sell some ballpoints. One interesting thing about the ballpoint, or gel ink, I should say, is that it actually uses pentel refills, or pentel energel refills. And we talked previously about Sailor has various collaborations with the pentel, like the robotics sector and so on. And I guess this is an extension of that. That shows that Sailor and pentel they are collaborating in various areas.
Yeah, so I mean, the point about the drawing ink into your pen by just dipping it, I feel like you should start beginners with cartridges. So I wouldn't have been mad if this was just a cartridge only pen. I wonder, you know what? I would really love to be like just a fly on the wall in one of these development meetings, and just hear about what these pen designers are saying, and like while they're pitching their ideas, I want to grill them on, why is then this the product to do. I'm not sure if that process is actually happening in the company, or if they're just deciding, oh, we're gonna make this pen because we had an idea, and then the execs are like, okay, yeah, we like the reason why, so go ahead and make that pen.
I think what you're saying that's a good question to ask Platinum, because Platinum has for longest been all in on cartridges, right? So why design a new feed for the Procyon to allow you to draw in ink when you're all in on cartridges? But Sailor's a bit different, because Sailor has so many, like all inks in all colors of the rainbow, and I think part of
That's true.
the bet here is that the reason you may want to use a fountain pen to begin with is that you have all of these exciting inks, and so if you can't use any of the inks because you're limited to cartridges, then I might as well just go back to my gel ink pen.
Yeah, that's true. I'm convinced. Um, yeah, so we'll see.
So it goes on sale today, I believe, and I'm going to actually head in and buy one because I want to use my family as a guinea pig here. That they're not fountain pen users, and because they rotate the pen and they use weird grips. So I'll see if I can get them to use fountain pens. If this will be the Trojan horse.
So stay tuned, listeners, because we're gonna have an update. All right. Next thing on the show notes is about this glass pen scene. So we've kind of talked about how it's kind of gone, off the rockers with glass pens, and we're seeing this trend now, which I personally just really dislike, is how as the glass pen makers have become more popular, especially the big three, I feel like this is just this is one step too far for me, which is that Tuzu has now they're creating an event, right? But you can't go to this event. You have to be invited to go to this event. It's an invitation by invitation only sales event, which just kind of, I don't know, like I kind of understand the reasoning why they would want to do something like this, but it's just elevating that exclusivity to such a unnecessary place, and it really gives off the feeling that they kind of think they're better than you. They think that you have to be the chosen one in order to purchase one of our pens or something like this. So I am personally a little bit tired of this glass pen scene.
I mean, you said in the previous episode, and we even made that the title, that they're all snobs, right? These top tier glass pen makers, the Aon and Tuzu and Hase and so on. And this further goes to show that they are absolutely snobs, and they're not trying to increase production. If anything, they relish that they love being like the ones that make unobtainium pens.
I think a part of it is like they had been kind of starving artists for quite a while, right? Like before this whole glass pen thing. Obviously glass pens is kind of a recent boom in Japan, at least, but it's hard to make a living as a glass pen maker. But then in this past like 5 years, right, all of a sudden you're like a glass pen millionaire. Oh, I don't know how much money they make, but their pens aren't like exactly super super cheap, right? So it's it's kind of sad to see where, as from in the start they're like, oh, come please look at our stuff, we welcome everybody, we want everybody to see our products, to now like, oh, you have to be invited to come to our event. Kind of like it's just gives off this Mean Girls energy that I'm not really into.
Mean Girls energy, I like it. Yeah, there might be another show title.
All right, the Marzen follow-up.
Yeah, so in the previous episode, I believe, we talked about the two big stationery fairs that are held by retailers in Japan. So the one by Mitsubishi, which we had already been to at the time. We recorded after the Mitsubishi event, and then the Marzen event that we hadn't been to yet because I hadn't started yet. And I think we said that we were very impressed by how well run and well planned the Mitsubishi event was, because they managed to get, going back to the previous topic, they managed to get most of the top tier glass pen makers. They managed to get these increasingly popular wooden ballpoints by Kobo-Setsu and others. They managed to get these normally hard to get regional Gotoji inks. They managed to attract Nagahara to other events. Basically like the whole package, what people are looking for in the stationery event nowadays, right? And there were a lot of people there. It's clearly very, very successful. By contrast, when we looked at that Hagage flyer postcard we got from Marzen, it looked like the same old thing. Like they had 5-ish store or event exclusive pens, and while they did look interesting, they're priced increasingly out of range for at least the younger crowd. Most of the pens are north of 100,000 yen. Other than that, what you have is really just the normal inks reissued, but they've been reissued so many times now that most of us have a stash of, Kirin and Sakuramichi and whatever. Right? The question is how popular can those reissued inks be? And other than that, it wasn't much. You had these
I didn't even go.
events by you
I
didn't
didn't, I
go,
didn't
yeah,
go. Yeah.
yeah. So I went. I didn't go there when I went there when they already opened, but some friends of us went there just before opening, and it was apparently a huge queue. It was back to like pre-COVID levels of people waiting outside Marzen. But as it was described to me, many people who were waiting in line, they were actually scalpers, and in fact, there were two, or there were two groups, it seemed, and there were sort of two bosses that went around to their underlings and gave instructions about which inks to buy, and there was some tension between the two scalper groups, and getting ahead in the queue, and so on. So clearly a big crowd, but unfortunately seemingly mostly scalpers. So they had to wait in line even inside on the basement floor for the chance to buy an ink. There were only 5 reissued inks this time. And not only that, but one of the reasons people like these reissued Marzen inks is that they have that faceted vase bottle, right? Which is now increasingly hard to find outside Ancora, and unfortunately, not even Marzen is able to use those bottles anymore. So this year's reissued inks, as well as the new ink, came in a normal Sailor square bottle, which may be more practical, but it's that way you lose part of the appeal of these inks. So big crowd, but maybe some disappointment there. But the store exclusive pens, or the event exclusive pens, they all, as far as I could tell, actually all sold out quickly, except for the 2 sailors. So the Eboya, which had that interesting brick pattern, sold out fast. The Pilot Custom Urushu, even though it was basically the same pen as last year, also sold out fast. The Ohashiro, which was very expensive, but it was only a small number, like 15 of them, also sold out fast. I think Ohashiro, as we talked about before, they have a small but very loyal group of customers that buy all of their pens. There was a Nakaya, which of course sold out fast. Nakayas are even popular now, as we talked about, because hard to get and so on. And I think it was Platinum Izumo that sold out even before the event started. But then there were 2 sailor pens. There was the Shishikura Sakura something, which was basically the same pen as last autumn, and then there was a new King of Pen, Prophet King of Pen, with an acrylic, which I think maybe have been one of the same acrylics as that Luminous Shadow. And I went to the event again like 5-6 days after they started, and the only pens that were still available were these sailors. And I think even now, after the event has ended, you can still go into Marzen and you can buy both of those sailors. So they did not sell out, which I think was interesting. Do you have any theory as to why people bought everything except the sailors?
We're reaching this sailor fatigue even in Japan, right? And interestingly, I think also pro gear fatigue. A lot of the new sailor pens are now in the 1911 profit shape. So this sailor, first of all, the Shikura is just, it wasn't even a reissue, right? It was just leftover stock. So if people weren't buying it, previously, then why would they buy it just because you put it on a flyer, right? So there really wasn't a compelling event. And then the King of Pens was I don't recall exactly the price, but I feel like it's a hard ask when your competition is the custom Urushi, which obviously much more work into that, or the Eboya brick, which obviously again much more work into that. What's the compelling event for me to buy that King of Pen other than, oh, maybe I like the color? So I don't think Sailor's doing itself any favors with its pricing. It's definitely not doing itself any favors with the 21 carat, right? I think they have to let go of their pride and just let that go, because otherwise they're not going to survive in this world, especially with the yen. What now, going to, are we at 156 yet?
Yeah, I think yeah, it's like a 30-year, 34-year low. I think right now it just keeps going down the toilet, and at the same time, gold is going up because partially of geopolitical reasons, like China is increasingly buying gold instead of U.S. treasuries. So there are some complicated geopolitical reasons why that impacts Sailor.
Yeah. Yeah, but then, gold is obviously, I mean, first of all, it's not mined in Japan, I assume. But where are you buying this gold from? You're buying it from overseas, right? Maybe you're buying it from China, maybe you're buying from some other country, whatever the case may be. I mean, the one country I think they're not buying it from is Korea. But anyway, they're being pounded, right, by this currency. We're seeing, obviously Feds have promised some cuts, or they haven't promised. They dot plotted some cuts, and the BOJ, actually, we're now, inflation has decreased, so we're no longer at the inflation target, and the low interest rates are that are causing this insane like exchange rate, right? uh, People feel poor. And, you know, again, I don't know if we've said this before, but the average Japanese salary is 4 million yen. So 4 million yen, if I convert that into US dollars right now, and at 156, that's $25,000. So, people don't want to spend money. So instead of, like, you know, easy access to capital, usually in other countries, means that, people go out and borrow cash and make businesses, but that's not the case in Japan. People like to save. Um, so, unless you've got a really compelling product, and I just don't see, first of all, where's the money coming from if you're making $25,000 a year to buy a Sailor pen that costs $1,500, right? And just on the product front, even product to product, I don't think it competes.
Yes, I think we are right now making the case for the Tuzu, right? I mean, whether the realization of that is what we're hoping for or not, I think we are making the case why they needed to do something like that, right? Because they have priced themselves out of the market with their gold pen offerings.
Yeah, but the Tuzo is also pricing itself out of its own
Yeah,
market,
that's true, actually. Yeah, yeah.
because you've got okay, let's not talk about the Kakano or the Preppy, right? But the Lightif, such a good pen, such a good pen. It's like 2,000 yen. At 5,000 yen, you're eating a really nice lunch. I'll tell you that. So, really nice lunch, really nice date, or a funky pen that you can rotate the angle with. Which one do you choose when you're a poor Japanese salaryman?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it might do better overseas. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many of their like focus groups were outside Japan. My suspicion was none, but who knows? Maybe the pen will do well. I do really. I mean, I wish them well. I mean, the stationery community would be a much worse off without sailors. So I'm hoping that they figure out something that works.
I
But
agree.
it is a bit sad that they're kind of struggling a bit right now.
Yeah. Well, I 100% agree with you. I want them to stay in the business. And I think the first step to doing this is reducing the gold content down to 14 karat gold. Even Bunga Box's latest Norwegian wood, their Realo, that's an 18 karat gold nib. So we know they can make 14 karat gold nibs. The 14 karat gold nibs they make are great. They just have to, maybe they've reserved 21 karat for like super high end luxury pens, right? Maybe the 21 karat gold is just on the King of Pens, and then the rest are 14 karat gold. That would make such a big financial impact to their company. So
have a feeling that, I mean, some of it is that they haven't recently made 14K nibs, so maybe they may need to adjust some aspect of their manufacturing. But more of that, I think, is just them being sort of gunko, and there's a matter of pride here. That because if you look at their product pages, they talk about how, you know, other lesser pen makers have 14K, we have 21. That's what sets us apart.
Yeah, well, you know, we're going to talk about them in history books when they don't exist in 10 years, right? About how pride led to their downfall. So I really hope they do well. I really, really do. And I think the first step is, you know, swallowing your pride. And you can still talk about your 21 karat gold, leave it for the extreme luxury range, but your pedestrian, you know, black and red pro gears or profits, like, you don't need 21 karat gold on them. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Especially as you said, as we have said many times over the years on this podcast, they're 14K nibs. They're great.
they're great. Yeah, they're great. And they still make 14 karat gold nibs in the small sizes.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. So they actually, presumably, there wouldn't be too much
Yeah.
adjustment to be
And
started.
especially they should not make 21 karat gold on their small size nibs, which they do. And I mean, um I don't know. I think as a business model, you have to think about, you know, how you're going to get your customers in, who are your entry levels, and what's that pipeline up to the high end so that you can have a high lifetime value for each customer, right? But, you know, who knows how they're thinking? They've just spent a lot of money on their new factory.
They did spend a lot of money on the new factory. That's true.
Yep.
We'll see how it goes.
All right. Next topic. We're close to the end of our episode today, but Stationery Fest. So Yoseka Stationery is holding a Stationery Fest, which they want to be kind of like the Bungajoshi of the United States. And this kind of came out of nowhere. Had you heard about this before?
Yeah, I heard about it from Alessa recently. I haven't. Yeah, so but I don't know much about it.
Okay, so basically, the Stationery Fest is this. Yeah, like I said, they're trying to be the Bungajoshi of the United States. So they've invited a bunch of different brands to exhibit, and I will be there at the Stationery Fest. I was one of the first people to be confirmed, but what's interesting is that they're actually inviting a bunch of Japanese brands over, and so you have like a TSL who are going over. Travelers will be there. I think Nagasawa might be there. Um, High Tide, Hachimonjiya will be there. It's their first time doing an event outside of Japan. Hanabi Glass Studio will be there. King Jim, for some reason, will be there. Kakimori. You know what really got me?
Tell me.
Is that Betchery will be there. Betchery will
That
be
is
holding.
that is not something I expected. That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Betchery will be holding workshops there, which I'm really excited about and also really sad about because I won't be able to attend because I'm going to be working at the show. Um, but yeah, that's. I just think it's super cool, you know, that they're managing to get all these like cool brands. Obviously they have U.S. brands as well, but yeah, it's quite interesting that, you know, I mean, getting Betchery there. That's I mean, he's so popular in Japan. I think he's gonna do really well in the U.S. And I think that might be one of his first like. Maybe he's done some workshops in like Korea or something, but they'll definitely be his first U.S. workshop, right? So, yeah, I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, he is, like you said, I mean, he's like a superstar at these Tono Limbs events and various other events in Japan, right? Yes, he's got his group is chasing him everywhere. I wonder how many people in the US know about him. I mean, we have talked about him a few times. But yeah, I guess at least initially at his first stationery, of course, stationery first. I mean, he won't have the same superstar status, but maybe will come eventually.
So, I mean, if he's not known yet, he will be known soon. He will be known soon.
Mm.
All right, let's round this off with this little game that some of the other content makers have been doing, which is you can only keep one. Can you explain the rules, please?
So my understanding is that like for each brand, you're only allowed to keep. I mean, assuming you have like a bunch of Pilot pens, a bunch of Mont Blanc pens, for each brand, you only get to keep one pen. And obviously, if you have tons of pens for different brands, then becomes a long exercise. So maybe we should limit it to a number of brands as well. So let's say like two out of your current collection, like pick two brands and pick one pen from each brand.
Okay, they can't be my own brand, right?
I
Obviously.
think the answer will be too obvious then, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so you wrote for me in my column. You wrote Mont Blanc, and I think this one is super super easy. I'm gonna keep the Agatha Christie. I have a lot of Mont Blancs, but the Agatha Christie released on my birth year. Beautiful pen, iconic. Obviously, there are a lot of other ones that I would want to keep, but this one probably is at the top of the list by far, even though it's not the pen that I use the most. Um, so there's that, and then maybe I'll take a Leonardo. I would keep the Blue Lucens Momento Zero Grande. I got this a couple years back.
Blue, what was
And
that?
I'm a
What's it called?
Blue Lucens. So it's like this old Omas material. I think I showed it to you at one of the first Christmas parties that we went to. So I've had it for a while, but I like that pen. It's pretty cool. Yeah, those are the two that I would keep. Relatively easy for me.
Hmm.
Jacob, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, most of my collection seems to be Pilot pens nowadays, and it's really agonizing trying to pick one. Like my three finalists would be maybe this classified as Namiki, but the Yukari Royale. I like just the plain red one. I guess it's called Urushi 20, but that one I think is almost like a perfect pen. I also really like the custom 823. But I think recently I've been more and more using Pilot's sterling silver collection, or like the silver one as they call it in Japan. And for me, that pen is just utterly perfect. I love the snap cap. I think more pens need to have snap caps. I love the inlaid, inset inlaid, whatever the correct term is, nib. I love the section. I tolerate the cartridge. I wouldn't say I love it, but because everything else about the pen is so nice, I tolerate that. So I would pick my most recent one, which is the Ishidatami. Beautiful pen, wonderful writer. I just can't stop using it. So that would be my Pilot. I think my other brand would be Mont Blanc. And out of, I mean, I have not too many, but the one that I really like is the one that Hiroko did for me. It's like a dark Ishime with like a red sort of cracked lines. It looks like he's like lava pouring down from a volcano. It's really really cool Urushi design she did on that, and I love it for that design. So those would be my two pens.
That's actually surprising. I thought you would have kept your heirloom 146.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have said that.
Well, I guess you'd give that to your son,
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly.
okay, we found a loophole. We found a loophole. Everybody calm down. We can go home now. That's so funny because I'm looking at this a silver in my hands right now. It's the Pikachu edition that they sold. I think it was a U.S. exclusive, but yeah, great pen as you said. Just beautiful balance too, and the styling, the look of that pen. Oh, it's beautiful, even with this ridiculous Pokeball on it.
But that's what makes that one so great. I mean, because the silver is it's a serious pen. Like it's sort of a bit pretentious, I guess. But that's why it makes it so absolutely hilarious with the Pikachu on it. Like the fact that it doesn't really seemingly shouldn't work. That's what makes it so hilarious.
I agree. I think it's fantastic. No regrets. No regrets. All right, so that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you everybody so much for joining in and hanging out. We had a great time, and hopefully we're going to record again sometime soon.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, my name is CY. You can find me on my website, my company website at qseidotokyo.com. You can find us on Instagram at qseido or on Tokyo Station Pens on Instagram.
And my name is Jacob. I am food fan on Instagram, and I also have a column in the Shumi no Bungobaku, aka Hobby Stationery Box.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye bye.